So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome everyone for another session of Excel Samvad on e-mobility, ecosystem, and evolution. Electric mobility as sustainable way to transport is already arrived, and we can witness new product launches from legacy OEMs and new stage startups based on the choices of consumers every month. Whole automotive industry is under transformation phase, and electric vehicle is driving the same. So I'll go ahead with the first phase of this session with the keynote address. I'll give an introduction to our speaker. So Mr. Nagesh is a global executive and business leader known for his expertise in driving profitable growth and transforming companies. Currently, he holds the position of non-executive vice chairman at Green Scotland Limited. After making contribution to organizations such as Fiat Chrysler Automobiles and ETG Group, with more than 20 years of experience, Nagesh has gained recognition for his skills in restructuring operations, devising strategies, and establishing strategic partnerships. Under his leadership, Greaves Cotton Limited has solidified its position as a provider of last mile transportation solutions in India. Nagesh's impressive academic background includes an MBA from University of Chicago Booth School of Business, which further enhances his knowledge and experience in the industry. He will be sharing insights on the keynote speaker for the Excel Samvad panel discussion on e-mobility, ecosystem, and revolutions. We welcome you, sir. Stage is all yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. What an exciting time it's to be a student and getting into the industry. And it really is interesting time. So let's have a discussion on how it is. First of all, I want to thank the management and the faculty for inviting me to this Samvad. It's really a pleasure and to be interacting with the students of XLRI. If you look at what happens in a typical summer day in India, or even in November, where you have the smog in cities like Delhi, right? Heat waves are happening not only in Delhi, but of course across Asia, Europe. Floods are happening in other parts of the world. Increasing global temperature, what's called as a global climate, or due to the climate change that's happening. And obviously, these are all events that over the years are precipitating. These extreme events obviously pose us health risks, and urgent action is needed to mitigate some of the effects of climate change, I think, and developing adaptive measures to protect the community from some of these. The alarming statistics of even the emissions, in fact, some data suggests that approximately 15% of air pollution is happening globally, right, due to some of this. So this really calls for a climate change and coming up with how we get the climate better, how do we leave a better global economy or a global system for our next generation. I think it's very, very imperative. With that, let's go to the next slide. Let's talk a little bit about disruption. Everybody knows that we are in a very volatile world, but if you look at the tech disruption, it's and the advancements that are happening, right? There is a significant like tenfold improvement in performance of the products in some cases at a fraction of the cost. Look at a lithium cell. Prices have fallen, right, over the years. Performance have improved. One pivotal aspect is this entire area of battery storage, solar storage, etc., right? And it will continue. I mean, with any technology, the challenge is how do you kind of deal with technology that can keep on improving, and you improve the commercialization of that technology over a period of time, right? So this convergence driven by cost efficiency gains will, over a period of time, i.e. the cell prices going down, or in the case of other renewables, the solar panels going down, etc., will only add to the sustainability of the electric vehicles, right? So as the battery packs or the battery cell price goes down, that's roughly 30 to 40% of the vehicle, right? It only makes a significant improvement in terms of the total cost of ownership. Let's go to the next slide. Tony Seba is a Stanford economist and a very deep thinker on disruption. In fact, he's done a lot of studies, and he talks in some of his studies about the transformation of transportation, right? By the way, if you look at 1900, a typical street in New York would have only horse carriages. There was only one automobile there, right? This was 1900. Just 13 years later, thanks to disruption, everything flipped. It was all automobiles led by Henry Ford's Model T. So it's a powerful example of how when disruption happens, it happens quickly. And technology advancement and innovation can lead to very big societal changes. We also see similar changes happening in other areas, mobile phone, for example, of late, right? LED lighting, etc., etc. Also, if you look at companies that have faced disruption, a lot of you may have heard about Kodak or a BlackBerry. Great companies, but over a period of time, disruption got to them because from a technology advancement, either they missed the tech curve or they miscalculated, right? So I think when disruption happens, there is a typical S curve. It happens, and it happens once it reaches a particular inflection point, it happens very, very quickly. Case in point, 13 years it took, and automobiles were in, horse carts were gone, right? Almost a century ago. Next slide, please. So now let's look at, yeah, please.
Can you put this in a presenter mode? The slides are not in a presenter mode.
Varghese, can you please do that?
Sorry, sir, for the interruption. But...
No problem. So I think that's better.
Is it okay now?
No, I don't think Varghese. Yeah. Are you guys able to see it? No, I don't think Varghese, it's not in the slideshow mode. Are you running it from a PDF?
No, it's a PPT that I'm running.
Can you present in Teams? Then on the red 3 dots on the right hand side, you can just
so we can try going in the slideshow mode.
Yeah, go to slideshow. Three dots on the
beside the video icon.
No, I've done that only.
So
can you see it now? No?
Sir, you can continue, I guess.
Okay.
So,
he can keep trying, right? So the next slide, if we can go to, right? Similar transportation transformation occurred in China as well. And it so happened that I was working in the auto industry in the West as well as in China. China transformed from, next slide, please, from bicycles, which is the pedal-driven bicycles, to becoming the largest automobile market fueled by new age EV companies. This transformation happened due to a combination of factors, which included, of course, policies, economic growth, a very big middle class. For example, the rapid expansion of ride-sharing platforms like a Didi and the rise of EV manufacturers like a BYD or a NIO have moved the needle away from the conventional IC engine to EV sales. If you look at the data here, the car sales versus the EV sales, there is a huge there's a huge example of how this story exemplifies innovation, changing customer preferences, strategic policies can reshape the entire landscape in a pretty short period of time. having a pulse on the consumer and also having the right value proposition. At the end of the day, it all comes down to what we call in business a total cost of ownership. If a cost per kilometer or a cost is X and I can do it with X minus, that's the idea of how the value proposition will drive the disruption faster, right? In addition to technology coming in, right? Next slide, please. Let's now move to India. India is also experiencing a similar kind of a transformation, except it's in the early stages. Obviously, even here, we touched upon it. It's some of the environmental concerns, good government policy, a growing middle class has led to the initial surge in EVs. A lot of companies like Tata, Mahindra, a lot of the companies are investing in these technologies, not just in two-wheeler, three-wheeler, but also in the buses and four-wheelers, right? These innovations coupled with changes in consumer preferences will also move the needle, and the story in India is going to be very, very exciting because again, it comes down to the economics here of the power of economics and how you can operate it at a lower total cost of ownership. Next slide, please. As management students, some things to keep in mind as you go forward, right? When you look at some of the mega trends that are happening globally, and especially in the mobility industry, one of the most significant shift is also the projected growth of smart mobility. What does this mean? It means autonomous vehicles, connected car technology. We have heard about it, right? Shared mobility services. However, it's the convergence of these technology will redefine how people move and how goods move, because mobility is all about moving people and moving cargo. That will reshape mobility. It will also reshape ownership models in terms of transforming vehicles into more data-driven, telematics-driven type of a platform, and more software and more what I call a tablet on the wheels. Some of the understanding and adapting to the smart mobility trends will be essential for future leaders as you go about entering the industry and looking for future challenges. We've also heard about Tesla, right? Tesla, as some of you are already aware, is one of the highest performing automaker in terms of shareholder returns. Significant market cap, right? When you compare that versus its peers. And the entire industry over the last 20 years has been changed upside down, thanks to an early mover like Tesla. Tesla's mission is to accelerate the world to sustainable energy. Next slide, please. It's crucial to closely monitor some of these mega trends, especially connected mobility, electric mobility, autonomous mobility, and some of those areas. They will alter also how people move within cities and intra-cities, and how sustainable and efficient transportation is done. Also, the changing aspirations of city dwellers, because they now want on-demand, shared, multimodal mobility solutions. The convergence of the technology along with urban lifestyle drives a significant shift from traditional car ownership to maybe an integrated, sustainable, and a personalized urban mobility service going forward into the future. So, case in point, some of you already experience it today. You use your app, go to the nearest scooter available. You can rent a scooter and go to the nearest subway station, take the subway or the metro or the train or whatever is convenient in your city. Then again, do a couple of multimodal steps. The idea is mobility, as we know, is changing very, very significantly. There's a lot of study, and this is some of the BCG data that's been studied as well. Next slide, please. So with the rise of electric mobility, another aspect to keep in mind is traditional profit centers will also evolve. What does that mean? The traditional way of companies making money in terms of service or components will emerge in the value chain. There'll be new profit pools emerging. And those will be the one that there is going to be a reconfiguration of profit sources. And there'll be emerging areas, which is going to be very, very interesting. Like, for example, as shown in the slide, newer components, which is more batteries, software, mechatronics, connecting charging services, etc., right? In addition to this, when you look at globally, the top 5 countries with the highest share of EV sales, by the way, it's a smaller market, but is Norway. Basically, Norway makes up about 80% of the passenger vehicle sales in 22. Basically, electric vehicles make up 80% of the passenger vehicle sales in 22. So some of the countries like Norway, Sweden, Netherlands have adopted a higher rate. Obviously, it's still a small market there. And then China and the US obviously are adopting electric vehicles. So I think it's beginning to move to many, many markets. Next slide, please. Now contrast that with the Indian story. The Indian story is accelerating. The trajectory of the Indian economy is on a rapid ascent, as all of you are aware. And with the expectation that by fiscal year 2030, India is expected to be the 3rd largest economy. This remarkable growth is due to a lot of factors, including the demographics, technology, innovation, and grabbing onto some of this and moving down that pace. So as India continues to embrace opportunities in manufacturing, services, technologies, I think it's a great story. And for those of you who are coming into the workforce, this is a great time to be in the workforce over the next 10 years. Next slide, please. This is an interesting slide. When you look at over the years, how starting from the Stone Age to today, there has been a time compression of disruption that's happening. Disruption has always happened. We moved from Stone Age to a Copper Age to Iron Age, etc., right? To the Internet age, etc. But when you look at the time that it took, thousands of years are now compressed to tens of years. This is the rapid pace of advancement driven by technology, driven by, of late, artificial intelligence. Our species has adopted in the past and will adopt in the future. And that is why, as a work generation, as you get out of work, get into the workforce, it's very, very important to embrace that change, capitalize on these technologies, and shape the future that you all can do. Next slide, please. The world is getting disrupted, as we all know. There is profound disruption happening. The speed and the magnitude is amazing. We have talked about how technology is a big driver. Certain other factors are drivers. To thrive in this era, you as management students need to prepare yourselves with the capabilities needed to adapt, lead, and drive transformations. Leverage emerging technologies. Have an open mind and try to stay ahead of the curve. In conclusion, as you step out into the world, beyond the school, beyond the colleges, some of these may be great opportunities because it can have a profound impact on how you build your careers and how you can shape the world. Yes, you can change the world. And yes, the world is changing. Just grab onto that. And I think the ride will be very, very interesting. Technology advancement, capabilities, innovative thinking, as you embark on this next chapter, take a look at the roadmap. Take a look at how you can be in the forefront of a positive and a transformative global change. All power to you. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the so much insights on new age technologies coming to automotive sector. I would like to bash to if they want to ask any questions. Floor is open for everyone. You can raise hands one by one.
If it is okay, can I go first?
Yes, Sugandha, please go ahead.
Sure. First of all, I would like to thank you, sir, for making it so simple. It was very easy to understand how the EV world is moving right now. My question is regarding, first of all, India has taken two goals. One is to go carbon neutral till 2070. And the other is EV, making 30% of private vehicles as EV by 2030. So right now, as we see, 80% of the electric energy requirement of India is currently fulfilled by the fossil fuels. So in your opinion, can both the goals, go parallelly or side by side, or one would be given priority over the other?
I think it's a good question. Make no mistake about it. Long term, we will have to run on sun, i.e., we'll have to run on renewables, right? Having said that, though, this is like as you're driving, you're refueling the plane, right? Or as you're flying, you're refueling the plane. So how do you do both? And in a country like India, it's a challenge. I mean, I think the policies are there. I think it will take a little bit of doing both. It's not an easy alignment, meaning you can't go overnight from fossil fuels to renewables, right? I mean, it's too expensive, it's time consuming, but there has to be a methodical time-bound manner, right, over which it needs to happen. And I'm glad that the policymakers and Niti Ayogs of the world are very seized of this matter. There is a lot of work going on. So while the entire resolution or the entire answer is not there, I think we are headed in the right direction.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Next.
Ajay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Atul. Very good afternoon, sir. First of all, thank you for your valuable time. My question is about supply chain vulnerabilities and challenges that world at large is facing. So right now we are dependent on fuel and all this for Middle Eastern countries. Do you think for lithium-ion batteries we will be dependent upon in a similar way to Southern American countries in that context, and still the supply chain will remain vulnerable?
No, I think it's a very fair question, especially given, if anything, COVID has taught us. Overall supply chain disruptions, right? We thought we had supply chains right next to us or in one country, and then we realized it's not feasible anymore, right? For whatever reason. And especially here, the point that you are making is very critical, because lithium-ion, which is a battery cell of choice these days, is available only in certain countries. So very, very valid point. The good news is, I think, as part of the PLI initiative, there's a lot of discussion that Indian companies will be taking it up, right? Manufacturing of the cells, because today in India, the cells are still not manufactured. So I think that's a welcome move. And over a period of time, working with the right, obviously, global governments to make sure that the access to that mineral, right? And plus the technology advancement. For example, in addition to lithium-ion, there is a lot of tech work that's going on in terms of sodium-ion or what's next. So I think while lithium-ion is the choice right now, I think I'm quite confident that over a period of time, A, India will find its way, and B, there'll be alternative technology also available over a period of time. So, right, it's something that we need to work towards and reduce our dependence, to your point. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Atul, if I could ask one more question, if given the time.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Sir, do you think in the upcoming next 20 to 30 years we'll be largely dependent upon EVs, or do you think that hydrogen fuel cells will also play their part in the vehicle count in that case?
It's I would say that's why we have always been talking about fuel agnostic. India is a country where, especially in India, I think some of these fuels, at least in the near future, I'm talking about 10, 20 years, right, will all coexist. Because India still lives in the hinterlands and in the rural area, availability of fuel is an issue. So whether it is petrol, diesel, CNG, biofuels, ethanol based, and hydrogen and flex fuels, right? Some people are working, some countries, if you look at Japan and Germany, right, are working on some of this technology, hydrogen and flex fuels. My feeling is, I think it's going to be a combination. What's going to be relevant, especially in India, India is a very smart market, because where you've all heard of this Kitna Deti Hai, where the typical, right?
I work for the same organization, sir.
Yeah, so I think that at the end of the day, the TCO will matter, the total cost of ownership will matter. So whichever technology is able to bridge that gap in terms of the total cost of ownership and provide the right value proposition, I think will win. So I'm not going to say right now that one technology will win, while electric is clearly the near midterm candidate. Longer term, to your point, I think other candidates will emerge.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you, Atul.
Guys, I think the time is already past, I think. So we'll mail the question to us, sir, all the queries we have. And that would be, I think, solving all the people's queries over the mail. Okay.
Yeah, happy. Please do, and happy to respond, right?
Sir, I would like to basically thank you on the behalf of whole batch of PGDM General Management. We are a one-year MBA students. We are a group of 115 people from different domains of the industry here. And thank you for your inspiring keynote address for e-mobility ecosystems and evolution, relating to global warming and clean mobility for sustainable life. And your note on driven by the cell cost reduction and better adoption among customers is going to drive the growth in the industry. And details you shared with the batch is very valuable. And this is a time of disruptive change. And I think the future of mobility is automated, connected, electric and shared. That is the future of the mobility. And your insights were valuable and deeply impactful. We appreciate your time and expertise in sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you very much.
Good luck. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Now we move ahead the second session of this panel discussion. I think Rishikesh will take over from here. Rishikesh and Sugandha, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I hope I'm audible.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Good evening to all the panelists and the students here. So we, as we look into EV and the future of an electrified mobility landscape, we would like to introduce this new panel discussion that we are having. And we hope it will be of use to everyone. So as the adoption of electric vehicles increases, the landscape in which it is growing itself is transforming. In addition to this, the people of India too are moving slowly from a survival mode towards thriving, and their expectations, and really the expectations of the people of the world are mercurial, and they're becoming ever more demanding, especially with respect to vehicles. And most importantly, the effects of climate change are becoming ever more evident with unprecedented heat waves, calamitous cyclones, and temperature increases that threaten the delicate balance between global ecosystems. In such an environment, we look to stratify the industry and understand the forces that guide it so that we may one day hold these reins and direct it towards a better future. Technology too is evolving at a rate almost too fast to keep track of, and companies are struggling to update their product lineup fast enough to keep pace with its evolution. To this effect, we have a distinguished panel of speakers today for the session on e-mobility, ecosystems, and evolution. Each of them is accomplished in their own field and are working at the bleeding edge of technology and e-mobility and its adoption. Now we would go on to welcome our speakers for this event. We start with Mr. Amit Kekari. He is the VP of E-Mobility Solutions at Siemens. Having worked in Siemens for over a decade in various positions, he is the true international executive who has built teams and managed products across geographies and cultures. Currently, he leads the e-mobility business for India and the Middle East. Prior to transitioning to e-mobility, He managed the corporate strategy function for Siemens' energy management and building technology business. He has also worked at Adani and ABB prior to this in business development roles. In 2010, he completed his post-graduation from ISB and also has a master's degree in electrical power engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. We welcome you, sir, to share your insights in the EV infrastructure and how you see its transformation going ahead. Sugandha, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Rishikesh, for summing up the context of the topic. And like you welcomed our first speaker, let me have the pleasure to welcome our second speaker. I welcome Ms. Arushi Kumar. She is currently heading the EV brand team at Mahindra & Mahindra and comes with a rich experience of 13 years in the field of branding and marketing in the automotive industry. Her impressive track record includes roles at Great Wall Motors and Maruti Suzuki, where she contributed significantly to the marketing and growth of the brands. With a focus on electrification, customer insight, and brand awareness, Arushi is a well-rounded expert to enrich our panel discussion today on the future of the automotive industry, particularly with respect to transforming consumer expectations in the growing Indian auto landscape. Welcome, Arushi.
Okay, let me go ahead then with welcoming Mr. Arindam Mukhopadhyay. He is a partner at India Accelerator and leads their corporate innovation function. He helps with their early stage startups with mentorship and provision of seed capital to grow their ideas through corporate collaboration. Before becoming an investor, Mr. Arindam has over 20 years of experience in the management consulting domain, especially as VP and head of business consulting at Gartner and as the associate director of technology consulting at PwC. He also completed his degrees in management from IIM Calcutta and augmented it with an advanced management program from Wharton. We look forward to hearing your views, particularly from a policy and growth perspective, sir.
Welcome, Arindam, sir. Continuing with the introduction, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Sandeep Ruhela, the current head of strategy and business planning at Escorts and Kubota Limited, who comes with a remarkable journey of over 1.5 decades across various roles and responsibilities and specializes in strategic planning, digital transformations, and M&A. Sandeep has played an integral role of over his 15 years tenure at Escorts Kubota Limited, making significant contributions across various critical areas, including product growth and market positioning, material cost optimization, and the development of both long-term and mid-term business strategies. Sandeep's illustrious journey and impactful contributions make him an invaluable asset to our panel discussion with unique insights in agri and construction machinery. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all our speakers.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We will be pinning you to the screen one by one, sir.
Sure.
As the tech team is doing so, without wasting much time and making the most of it, I would like to take this panel discussion forward. As Rishikesh already has put the context of this panel discussion in place, we would now like to delve deeper into the topic. But before that, we would like to hear from all the speakers their perspective on the current state of e-mobility in India and what, according to you, are the most critical challenges and opportunities in this dynamic and evolving ecosystem. We can start with Amit, sir.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, very clear, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, Team XLRI and my panelists. Thanks, Sugandha, for bringing this topic. The electric vehicle industry in India is definitely shaping up very fast, and it has bettered itself compared to the expectation of the industry players. Compared to what was in 2019, the government had started with the FAME 1, now FAME 2, and now we are also talking about FAME 3 policies. My co-panelists will definitely talk about that. What we are surprising ourselves is the speed at which some of the segments in electric vehicles, two-wheeler, three-wheelers, and the buses segment has adapted and shown the penetration has pretty much reached in above 5% of the new vehicle registrations. So this kind of adaptation was obviously ambitioned, but not really expected to take off after the COVID and everything. But the industry has shown a really great adaptation on this specific segments. So yeah, I mean, being part of the industry, I'm very excited about it. We can discuss about the details as we go forward during the panel discussions.
We can go in alphabetical order. So Arushi ma'am, you can go next.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. It's really great being here and seeing all of these students who are just going to be joining the workforce, and especially on a topic like this, which is so close to all of us at the moment, at least. Looking at the auto industry and speaking from purely a passenger vehicle or four-wheeler segment, the industry is going through this crazy transformation, and that's not happening just in terms of EV, that's also happening in terms of ICE. So it's really a whole industry shift and a transformation that's happening both from the industry perspective, also from how customers are changing, their preferences are changing, the ways in which they're interacting with the vehicles is changing. So as we get into more discussion, we'll take up some of these topics and try and put as much light as possible for you all to get a good perspective on what really is happening across India and the globe, and are the challenges and opportunities same, different? We'll talk through all of this as we move forward in the discussion. But super happy to be here.
Thank you for your note. Arindam sir, we wait to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Sugandha, and thanks Team Accelerate for inviting. I must say that I have some trouble in my throat, and for past few days I've been struggling to speak. So please excuse me if my voice gets choked. But I think this is a pertinent topic, as my earlier role as a consultant and now in the startup ecosystem. I see the transformation, as many of you would be expecting to hear more from our perspective. But I think there is a clear transformation, and I'm very happy that the government and India as a country is taking definitive steps and measures towards transformation and towards shifting towards this transformation or adopting EV in a bigger way. So I think that's very positive. Some of the regulatory aspects like FAME 1, FAME 2, it's actually making the industry to evolve in a more positive manner and build more indigenous technologies and capabilities in-house within India. I think all these are very positive step forward. And when I see from my first-hand experience that how the new age players or the startups, they are going to contribute in this industry is going to be also immense. And whether it's a question of big players versus startups, I would say it's going to be more collaborative. It's more of an ecosystem which we are trying to build, and it has to be an ecosystem way to go forward. And hence, all the players will have their roles to play. So happy to contribute in the discussions, but I'm also going to learn a lot from the other panelists. So looking forward to it.
Thank you, sir. This is definitely a platform to learn. Now we await Sandeep sir's note, please.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here. While all of my co-panelists are actually working maybe in two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, or maybe directly tracking electric mobility, being consultant, but I come from agriculture and construction industry. It cannot be called e-mobility, but yes, it is machinery and machinery electrification. And we were thinking this is just a disruption for automobile, but we are wrong. This disruption is actually happening in agri-machinery as well as construction equipment, maybe at a very nascent stage today. But globally, a lot of activities are happening. I would rather say that half of it electric, but half of it other alternative fuels, which will basically disrupt our industry. So while I will learn a lot from co-panelists about automotive electrification status, but I would be very happy to contribute from agriculture and construction machinery perspective. So look forward and happy to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you, all the speakers, for your starting note. We are looking for a very candid and insightful session ahead. I and Rishikesh would be moderating the session throughout. So, Rishikesh, please.
So thank you for all the panelists for kicking off our event. So I have another question with respect to the first part that we'd asked initially. That is, I want to get your perspective on how the ecosystem itself is evolving in India with respect to the rest of the world, and what the big differences you see, if any, or maybe some trends that may be happening in other countries that will be replicated in India. I'd like to start, Mr. Amit.
Hi, Rishikesh. Thanks for the question. So India, so from the automotive market perspective, many of you might have read across that we just took over Japan. So we are only after US and China around the world. So we are third largest automotive market in the world. From that perspective, till date, we used to little bit look up to other parts of the world and look at what can be done, what should be done. I would say now that times have changed a little bit. We are also setting the trends. We as a country, being one of the largest consumers from one of the segments like two-wheeler, three-wheeler, we are also setting up the trends for electrification of this transportation segment. So I would distinguish two parts. India is slowly adapting, mainly the consumer segment. The private owners are little still hesitant on adapting these electric vehicle compared to the rest of the world. There are different reasons. There are consumer behavior patterns to actually guide that, rather than the availability of infrastructure, because there is always some buzzwords you would hear and read about in articles about range anxiety or charging infrastructure is not sufficient. Actually, matter of fact, number of vehicles on the country, India's ground versus the infrastructure available, it's sufficient. It's matter of reliable infrastructure is what more concern. So I would say it's more of a consumer behavior which would have to be directed, and that only will happen when the consumers feel comfortable not only making a choice from the list of vehicles available in the market, but also seeing it on the ground by a lot of people adapting it. So two-wheeler, three-wheeler segment, definitely it's already been visible in last 3-4 years. Buses also being now visible. If you are in part of NCR region in Mumbai, the iconic double-decker bus is already electrified. So all these aspects are visible. As soon as that happens, the population do start accepting these kind of topics as new normal. Globally, the passenger vehicle segment has shown much more traction than the rest of the segments. Completely inverted pyramid compared to the world, but India. That's because there is a lot of private vehicles, passenger vehicles being consumed. The public transportation is not the largest segment, and two-wheeler, three-wheeler does not constitute that much of quantities in automotive sector of the rest of the world. So I do see that India has a unique combination. India always would require a completely local approach. Yes, you can look at the global perspective, understand how it was adapted, how it can be accelerated, but India would definitely require, because India itself within as a country is a big continent. I mean, if you take a Europe, the entire 15 countries, you put it together and that's our India. So I think we need a local thought process. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for your take. Actually, that kind of neatly dovetails into my next question. Actually, I'd like to throw it to Arishina. Like, what do you think the impact of branding and particularly marketing is with respect to EV adoption in this context, in the Indian and the international context?
Well, that's a great question, actually. So, as most of you would agree, that there are really no two views about the importance of brand building and what a strong brand can do for you, right? A strong brand means you have more mind share, means you have more market share, means you have the ability to charge a price premium, which ultimately contributes to your top line and bottom line of business, right? And without a strong brand, everything does kind of tend to get a little bit commoditized, right? So now in our world, in today's world, when technology disruptions happen in the market and entry barriers are lowered, in such a scenario, it is even more important for companies, especially legacy companies, be it Mahindra or any other legacy player, to re-establish themselves. Now, if I were to just quickly ask, who is the most superior performing EV? What is the brand that comes to your mind? In all likelihood, it's going to be Tesla. If I were to ask that, which is the brand that comes to your mind, which was the first EV car manufacturer? In all likelihood, you all are going to say Tesla, right?
Nice.
But and that's not the case. But that really is the importance of what a strong brand does, right? So now, if you see what later in the last couple of years, or probably 4 or 5 years, what is happening is that even legacy players are shifting from their typical marketing techniques and typical brand identities to more urban codes, right? To give you an example, Volvo Polestar. That's an example you all could probably read up about after the session, maybe. Or if you look at Volkswagen ID, what they've done, right? So these are some great examples of what moving from legacy codes to urban codes is, and that's true in the case of legacy manufacturers. But it also kind of tells you the importance of building brands, strong brands, and speaking the language the consumer is speaking.
Okay, no, that was a interesting take. I'd like to ask Arindam sir, what is your perspective, sir, on how these factors are different between the Indian and the international context?
Yeah, I think some of the things, some of the points what Amit alluded to. If you look at the overall manufacturing progress, what we have seen over the last many decades in India is probably not even matching in terms of the standards, the quality, etc., what we have seen in the developed countries, Europe or US, if we compare, or even Japan, right? But I think this is a moment of opportunity for us, as we have surpassed Japan, or probably the third largest consumer in terms of automobiles, to leapfrog ahead and show that we can actually come up and sort of match their levels in terms of where the world is moving towards, if we consider EV as a segment or as a sector. So I think there is a huge opportunity, but I think some of the differences would be the adoption of even in India, the two-wheeler, three-wheeler segment where the most adoption is happening, this is not consumer segment, rather mostly logistics segments, right? Or maybe public transport segments. So this is these are some of the differences. The other differences could be, the point what Mr. Amit alluded to, that the reliable charging infra, and one of the challenges what I see is probably going to be the main barrier, is the adoption, or how we sort of bust some of the myths which is around EV infrastructure or EV adoption overall. Like, people are still averse of buying EV unless and until they have their first-hand experience. They will always have that range anxieties and all of that. But to be frank, today in India, we have adequate infrastructure but probably reliability is something which has to go up or probably increase over time. So some of these challenges would be there. Along with that, I also feel in terms of EV, the Indian domestic manufacturers, they have to be prepared to compete against some of the global players. So far, government has been very particular that unless and until you are manufacturing in India, you won't be able to sell automobiles or EVs manufactured outside and then just come here and sell. So I think that's something which is to protect our manufacturers. But I think the manufacturers, they have to come forth and start addressing this market rather aggressively. I mean, if I talk about the four-wheeler, except Tata, no one has taken the lead. And if you imagine, Tata didn't practically have any technology advantage that they were in the EV segment. I mean, unlike, I'm just mentioning the names, like Mahindra and Mahindra probably were in the EV segment long time back, but they didn't or couldn't take that advantage when it came to the four-wheeler consumer segment, right? But Tata took that advantage. But I think finally in India, if the four-wheeler consumer segment has to take off, then the bigger players like Maruti or Hyundai, they have to come forth and they have to say that, okay, we are putting our bets on EV, and then probably this will take off. But I think the time is not much in our hand. I mean, if we talk about MG, BYD, or even Tesla, I mean, Tesla is protected. Tesla is not allowed to enter until they manufacture in India. But if these players come and penetrate the market, then we'll lose the battle. Again, we'll be having or creating a huge dependency on overseas players or overseas manufacturer, and that's something which definitely is not something which will be good for our industry overall or country overall. So that's something which I wanted to highlight.
Thank you, sir. That was a really interesting take, especially with respect to building competence against the global powers in the EV segment. Finally, I'd like to go to Sandeep, sir. Your take on this, on how the Indian context works, and is there any difference you feel to the international context as far as EV mobility is concerned?
Yeah, I think very valuable points already added, but I myself see huge difference. We can look at it in two ways. First is basically the product segments. So if you look at in India, mostly penetration has happened in two-wheeler, three-wheeler. But if you look at basically car segment, passenger vehicles, so it's maybe hardly 1.5 to 2%, being optimistic. While you look at other examples like China or maybe Europe or even America. So while in China, two-wheeler as well as four-wheeler penetrations are actually much higher. But if you look at Europe, so four-wheeler penetration of like e-mobility is higher, and USA is still like I feel that maybe still protecting many of their conventional IC players are not committed the way like Tesla has come up and now completely disrupting the game. But USA can come up anytime. So this is one aspect that how different product segments are actually, or industries rather, are behaving. I will just like to bring the flavor of agriculture as well as construction machinery as well. So if you look at, we also developed one electric tractor way back in 2017-18. We did not find any takers in India. We mostly developed it for US and European markets, and also not for agriculture operations. We basically wanted to utilize this particular product for urban landscape applications like golf or let us say football stadiums. So there basically you use tractors, right? Other product in construction industry is basically forklift, because mostly usage is indoor in the factories. So I would say that out of whatever population gets sold, some 35 to 40% is already electrified. Right. So I would say that, and forklift is the largest product category in construction equipments, and also growing at a faster CAGR in comparison to other product categories in CE. So to me, it looks like forklift will get electrified very quickly, right? And so it will spread evenly. Now, talking about the value chain. So you look at supply chain first of all, and China basically has almost 50 to 60% lithium ion reserves with them. And that's how they basically control the complete supply chain, right?
Yes.
India is still figuring out like how to ensure supply, although some discoveries have been done. But I think it will take good time. So from that point of view, also, I think India is far behind. But I like the point made by Mr. Arindam that India missed the bus when entire world, especially developed world, was actually going through internal combustion development, and we mostly got reduced to let us say component industry, but now we are doing fine. But in EV, I think we should be at the forefront, considering that we have a large domestic consumption. Like two-wheelers can drive the economies of scale. Currently, it may be driven by gig economy, but I feel that it's easy to still electrify the passenger two-wheeler usage as well. So that can bring the economies of scale. And of course, I think four-wheelers have to up the game. They have huge capacities installed. And for EV, I think new capacities or at least modifications in the existing capacities need to be done. So until large players commit to it, I see Mahindra, they have committed huge capex. So in this way, I think all the big companies need to commit. And after that, we will start to see that change, which has already happened, let us say in China or Europe.
So before I go for the next question, I just wanted to ask a follow-up on that. So India, particularly in the agri-business, is a bit slower in the adoption of EVs. So would you throw more light on that? Why, as to why you think that is? Is it because of policy or
So,
infrastructure?
Yeah. So in both the industries, agriculture as well as infrastructure, adoption is very slow. The reason being, tractor is actually a machine which uses traction and torque from the engine, right?
Yes.
And battery technology still is not fully developed for such a abusive use of load on these machines. So this is one reason. Second reason is that tractors or even construction machineries are actually used for longish hours. Once it starts, it basically continues during the day. It only stops at the night.
Right.
So long range charging is not available in any of the battery for tractor as well as construction machinery. So this is another aspect. Third aspect is that due to the use of more load, I think some 50 to 60 HP machines, up to that, electrification will happen. But beyond that,
Yes.
both in agriculture as well as construction, I feel that more of hydrogen basically will come, because hydrogen can ensure that long range as well as peak load demand of the engine can be supplemented through that. So I think it has purely to do with the technology development. This is reason number one. And reason number two is volume is not as large as any two-wheeler or four-wheeler. So I feel that development would be little slow, but yes, below 50, 60 HP, we will see good adoption of electric post maybe 2025 or 2026, when we have new emissions coming in tractor as well. Because of that, cost of any tractor will increase by 1.5 lakhs. So either you basically spend more for the same tractor after emission norms, or you pay maybe a little bit more and get an electric tractor. But by that time, I feel this range issue would be solved in the battery technology.
Thank you, sir. That was a very detailed answer. Sugata, you can go ahead with the question.
Yeah, thanks, Rishikesh. So first point I would like to highlight is how all the perspective on the same question were so varied. So this is the power of experience that I was seeing here. And it was very, all the points that were mentioned, the very intriguing point was like Sandeep sir was mentioning, that the two-wheeler business or the two-wheeler electrification is comparatively faster. And I was just reading about Bounce, I think in Bangalore, they are coming forward with 1 lakh of fleet in their two-wheeler, shared mobility business, and they have backward integrated. And whereas Ola Electric, they are forward integrated again. Like first they launched the bike, and now they are just selling their bike to their own business to help them with the branding. So talking about the branding, my next question is to Arushi ma'am. Ma'am, like we were speaking on how tractors are power vehicles, and it will take time for them to get electrified. Talking about M&M was at the forefront from the start, like when MME started. And Mahindra also has an image of a very powerful vehicle with their engines like M Stallion and M Hawks. So in your view, how difficult would it be for shifting the consumer perspective towards EV, portraying the same power of Mahindra vehicles when the battery tech is still evolving? So how the branding strategy would be focused around that?
Okay, so your question is actually leading to the first part of Rishikesh's question. So like I was saying that, legacy automakers also have to evolve. And what we are doing at Mahindra is a couple of things really that are working for us in some ways. One is we are extremely close to the customer. We are seeing what they like, what they don't like, what are the usage patterns, what is it that they prefer in a car, how do they live, what their lifestyle is, who's using the car, when the family members are using the car, how are they using it, what really is the lifestyle of today's customer. Is the EV customer really different from an ICE customer? That's something to ponder upon. And once you kind of get into it, you realize that customers are looking for value, right? And they are looking for value in the product that they're buying, irrespective of what the product is. It could be a car, phone, anything. They want that when they're buying the product, A, they get value out of it. 2, that the convenience is not, so it's not inconvenient to them, right? The attempt for any manufacturer is to reduce the inconvenience. And in case of EVs, if I were to give you an example, the inconvenience is, okay, where am I going to charge my car, right? So when you're selling cars, you realize that, okay, people want chargers with their car. They want help in installing of those chargers and all of that. But as and when people start using their vehicles, they realize that, okay, I have a usage pattern of the vehicle and I don't really have the anxiety of charging anymore. And this has been my experience after speaking to 3,000 people who've bought Mahindra cars, by the way. So Mahindra electric cars, just to be clear. So they realize that, okay, I have a usage pattern. I'm driving 50 kilometers per day. My car gives me a 300 to 350 kilometer range. So I kind of need to charge my car just twice in a week. And then, they make a charging cycle. So basically, there are things that you need to do on the education of this from a branding aspect, 1. And 2, you need to really, talk a lot more about the feature benefit that's there. And that's not any different from what we do in the ICE world, really. It's kind of the same, but the emotional angle that you have to put in when you're selling an EV is far more deeper than what you're doing for an ICE. Just simply because there are so many barriers that are there in people's minds when it comes to adoption, right? Just to extend this answer a little bit and to give you all a deeper understanding, when you look at a customer journey, right, it starts from a Google search, correct? And it goes all the way to service, to the first service, second service, third service. And there are these, if you were to plot an ICE journey and EV journey, you would realize that the EV customer walks into a showroom 4 times versus an ICE guy walks into a showroom only 2 times, right? The ICE person takes 15 days to convert search to booking a vehicle versus a EV customer takes around 40 days to do the same transaction. And then from booking to retail, again, there are different number of days for ICE and different number of days for EV. And what is really important is to understand why these differences are there and what is it that the customer is seeking during this time, you know. And in my conversations with a lot of these customers, focus groups of M&M and, you know, competition as well, you realize that they need a lot more hand-holding.
Right.
And you know, when you look at branding is not just about making this nice, beautiful ad and putting it up on a World Cup or OTT, or I mean, and that's important for sure. But it's also about the experience you're giving to them when they're walking in store, when they're coming in on the website. Are you able to hear them? Are you able to handhold them through the entire journey? And that's where Mahindra is trying to differentiate itself at the moment.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a very interesting take. So basically, now the consumer voice would be much more, you know, put in interest for the brands. Rishikesh, to you.
Yeah, ma'am, that was a really insightful answer. So before I go to the next question, I wanted to actually follow up on that. So would it be fair to say that Mahindra is now focusing on looking at what the customer is seeking out of this and making that the core of their branding so that it reduces this time of conversion?
So, Rishikesh, it's not really reducing the time of conversion. It's really about hand-holding in the entire journey. So you don't want to kind of come across as a brand that's putting pressure on the customer to, okay, you know, just khareed lo, dekh lenge. That's not the intent. The intent is to make the person comfortable, confident, sure that, boss, you know, go ahead, take your time, buy it. We're there to support you. And that kind of shifts the narrative entirely, you know, when you're trying to speak to a customer in that tonality. So that's kind of one area where Mahindra is definitely trying to differentiate. And what we're also doing is we're trying to differentiate and you know, everybody has this core differentiator, right? So for Mahindra at the moment, it is three differentiators is what we're looking at. We're looking at technology, we're looking at design, and we're looking at brand. So that's kind of how we are trying to differentiate from the rest.
Thank you. That really clarified the question I had. And since we're speaking of support, I'd like to go to Mr. Amit, since the key support that EV infrastructure, EV's ecosystem would require is the infrastructure. So the Siemens has played a significant role in advancing e-mobility infrastructure. So, sir, can you share some insights onto the key challenges that you've encountered while setting up this infrastructure elements, and maybe some of the solutions that you've implemented during this time?
Yeah, thanks, Rishikesh. And I guess, as Arushi mentioned, it's very important for the decision maker, whether it is a private actually purchasing the four-wheeler or two-wheeler, to actually own and then experience it throughout its life cycle, the benefits of electrification of this transportation. One of the key puzzle is obviously infrastructure. However, again, I would come back to that perspective that majority of the electrical vehicles will get charged at home. I mean, our experience is more than 40 or 50% of the time, the electric vehicle does get charged at home within their parking lots. Yes, and that's where the uniqueness of India comes into picture, that not everybody has a dedicated parking lot, and that's where the challenge and the decision making in this industry start shaping up how that infrastructure needs to be deployed, where are the right locations, what kind of power or high power charging or different modes, whether it is wireless charging or anything else, that needs to be evaluated. We being little bit of a let's say, not as a country or as even the industry, we are not that well planned nature. We normally rush to the decision of implementation. So the vehicles will be deployed, infrastructure answer will be later on taken up, and then we end up in that quasi cycle of infrastructure not being ready, or it's not sufficient, be it for the electrification, be it for the highways, be it for the roads. So that's where the government and its policymakers have indeed put now a lot of efforts to at least start giving the directives to different nodal agencies, be it on the central level or on the state level, that the charging infrastructure or any sort of infrastructure needs to be planned by taking into the 5 to 7 years down the length adoption rates of these vehicles. Are we there yet? No, I am. Coming from the German organization, we still way far away from the planning perspective. However, it's improving, I would say. And the second most important part comes into picture is infrastructure mentality. I mean, infrastructure right now is being sort of deployed based on let's say cost competitiveness, or which is also important, but not by keeping into account of long-term total cost of ownership of that particular infrastructure. And that needs to be all the time taken into account when the decisions are being made. When you as students will be part of the industry, that should be the decision-making part. One should always take into account that the total cost of ownership of any decision has to be evaluated. It's not the first primary part, because similar with the electric vehicles upfront will be much more costlier than the ICE vehicles. But if you look at the total cost of ownership of electric vehicle, it's a common sense to switch to that particular part. But that's exactly what needs to be done. Have Siemens done it? Yeah, Siemens has in India also been very active, pretty much again focused on to the larger segments where public transportations are being deployed. So Bangalore's BMTC 300 buses have been converted. That's where Siemens is present. Chandigarh, more than almost 80 plus buses have been converted. Mumbai double-decker buses are being powered by Siemens. So Siemens is in the backside. Arushi and the organizations are very much upfront in the consumers' day-to-day activities. But we are in the backstage supporting the entire ecosystem to ensure that whatever being deployed onto the ground is basically making sure it's running properly, or it's getting supported in long term. Yeah? So that's where we stand. And around the world, the same scenario. I don't think we are any other country is in different situation than India. Everybody's struggling. Everybody's trying to figure it out in their own ways. India has an opportunity where we are in nascent stage, so we should shape it properly by doing a proper planning.
So actually, from Amit sir's point, I was reminded of our operations class today, where we were discussing the importance of standardization and standardization across industries. So I think when we are building infrastructures, so all the manufacturers, even the infrastructures, the companies involved in setting up the infrastructure, they would need to collaborate to standardize the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sir. Before I had actually something that I noticed. I do come from a German company. In the past, I was working for Daimler. So this total cost of ownership actually rang a bell in my head. So that was the same kind of marketing used by Daimler when they entered India. Although they're competing in internal combustion engines, that was how they pitched. We pitched vehicles as compared to say the entrance players like Ashok Leyland, Tata, or Mahindra in the heavy trucks situation. And one of the things observed there was that this total cost of ownership is not really used by anybody else. And once the fleet owners or the truck owners started realizing the benefits of that, they started preferring Daimler, even though it was a more expensive solution for the upfront, like you said. So would you say that it's the awareness that is the problem here too, like what I faced?
Yeah, I would say awareness, or also the management style. The way the decisions are being made. I mean, let's be honest. Infrastructure. As soon as the word infrastructure comes, it gets parked into the either government procurement or the public procurement part, and there by nature of procurement policies, it has to go through the sort of level 1 pricing tendering process. I mean, Siemens just now won the 3 billion euro worth contract for next 20 years for all Vande Bharat high-speed train. So we
Yes.
are used to it, but the topic is it has to go through the entire process to continuously have the stakeholders make aware of this mentality. I would even extend 1 minute more on this topic is not only infrastructure topic. I would say the industry now would force people to think about total cost of ownership, because if you look at your own XLRI batch, next 5 or 7 years, I do not think people would like to own their own vehicles. They will do the fleet and they will have a ride sharing. Yeah. So the decision of purchase of the vehicle has been shifted from private to the organizations, and the best classical example is the Blue Smarts of the world or Lithium from the Bangalore. That they procure thousands of vehicles compared to the private vehicles, and they are already shifted, and they are economics wise already proving that it is cheaper to ride an electric vehicle than the ICE vehicle. It will take time, but these new business models or these new ways of asset ownerships are driving this total cost of ownership discussions upfront rather than only thinking about the capex.
Thank you, sir. That really clarified it and really brought like the other factors too, which are slowing down the growth. So Kunal, go ahead.
Sure. Now, I would request a take from Arindam sir, considering his extensive experience in the corporate innovation. How do you see the traditional Indian industries adapting to the shift towards EV, and what role can corporate collaboration play in accelerating this transition?
Yeah, I think that brings to the point that whether it is one individual player who is going to be successful in this industry, or it is an ecosystem which has to develop for all the players to move ahead. So I definitely feel that it's the ecosystem which has to be developed. As Mr. Amit said, that it's not just the EV of the vehicle what you are going to purchase, but along with you should be equally concerned whether there isn't supporting infrastructure and all of that. It's an ecosystem which has to develop. I think much of the four-wheeler adoption is going to be driven by that, right? As I'm feeling that there has to be collaboration with smaller players or even startups, the new age companies, be it for faster innovations, or even creating a network of, let's say for example, creating a stronger network of charging infra, right? I mean, as a vehicle owner, you may not go into or foray into that charging infra establishment, and for those you probably would be forced to partner with or collaborate with other players and a lot of small players, because some of the challenges what we are facing in the charging infra is solvable at the software level of it, not just the hardware level, right? And when it comes to the software level, I think there is a huge advantage of working and collaborating with startups, for example, right? I know of startups who are basically creating a operating system, if we may call it so, which can make this charging infra interoperable, right? I mein, today it's a struggle that you cannot charge your vehicle in any charging station, right? So they are creating an indigenously developed India-made operating system where they can connect all vehicles, they can connect all charging infra and make it really flexible for any vehicle owners to go to any charging station and be able to charge. So that's one example. Also in the manufacturing side, the large companies, they have that manufacturing scale, right? So that's their key forte. They have that scale developed. But I think one important aspect which has to come into their mind is the innovations, how they're going to innovate, especially because the owners of EVs are going to be the Gen Zs, right? And they're more conscious about environment, of course, but also about the tech features or maybe even the design, the styles, right? So I think from that perspective, the vehicle manufacturers, the big players, they have to really compete with the new age players or the startups. If I talk about two-wheeler segment, for example, just to give you an example again, that the Ola scooters, they have built-in features of GPS mapping, or maybe even the autopilot or cruise control, right? I mean, which probably you get only in some high-end models of four-wheelers in the country. And now these features will drive the adoption, and this has to be in the mind of the Indian manufacturers. And the question is that, can't it be done by the big players? Of course, yes, but I think they have to take innovation very seriously. And that's where I think the importance of collaboration will be felt, and that's going to be the norm. So ultimately, to answer your question, I think collaboration is going to be the norm. It's going to be an imperative while we are building the whole EV ecosystem in the country.
Right, thank you, sir. Sir, just to put a small follow-up question on this, we were discussing, like previous to this panel discussion, that how the innovation has become faster and adoption of technologies has become much more faster. Like there is you can say, a perception that within 13 years, the entire all the vehicles would be converted into EVs. But I was just reading an article, and this thought came to my mind about what about the rural sector? I mean, how penetration would follow in the rural sector of India, because the infrastructure would take much more longer time to reach towards the rural side of India. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's an important thing, and in fact, that's where probably some sort of collaborations with new age players would also matter a lot. Because if you look at where these established players and the new players, they will collaborate, is the personalizations or customizations, right? Especially if I again talk about the two-wheeler, three-wheeler segment, because that's going to drive adoption. Four-wheeler segment, I don't think that immediately we'll see a lot of new players coming in and penetrating the market, but two-wheelers, yes, even three-wheelers, right? And when we talk about the innovation, just for example, I mean, the requirement of the battery or the storage capacity of the battery for a two-wheeler would be very different in urban versus rural, right? Or for that matter, how do I create that infrastructure in a rural areas versus the urban areas, right? So I think these are the areas, and to your point, if you say that the rural will probably lag behind a little bit in terms of adoptions, and I don't want to put a time to it, whether it is 10 years or 13 years, but I think it's going to be the economics, the total cost of ownership, and those are the type of discussions. And as Mr. Amit rightly said, that EV is going to drive that shift in the buyer's mentality. That total cost of ownership is very important. It's not just going to be sold by the conscious buyers or sustainability angle, that okay, we are saving a lot of pollutions or producing less carbon in the environment. I think it's going to be economics, and from that perspective, everybody is going to eventually shift to EVs. But I think the requirement is going to be very different from rural to urban. And that's where the customization also play a role, that one size fit all is not going to work. And I think a lot of varieties of the models, a lot of variations in the models, I think those are the things where people have to innovate and come up with solutions which will differently fit the rural and urban.
Right, sir. Thank you for that note. Shifting the conversation again to the agri and the construction business, I would like to take Sandeep sir's note on particularly considering the lack of charging infrastructure as of now and the use in the Indian context of the agri and the construction equipment. What strategies, and especially considering the software as sir was suggesting, which the startups would be considering. So what strategy and digital transformation are Escorts Kubota implementing to integrate e-mobility into the agri and construction equipment sector?
See, I think as I earlier mentioned, our industry would be a little bit slow to basically adopt to EV technology. And while we developed a product some 6-7 years back, and sold few units in India as well in few villages just to check how customers are actually going to behave on the product. So it did solve few of the problems of farmers. Because typically a tractor is a very noisy machine and vibration levels are very high, right? So they liked this as a fresh change that there is no noise and there are very less vibrations. So they basically compared it with any automobile that now driving tractor is more like, becoming driving a car. Right, this is one aspect. Second aspect, I think you touched upon TCO, but I would say that more than urban customers, rural customers understand TCO. Of course, they don't understand this term as it is, but the concept, because mostly people, you look at their income levels, so you know that they cannot shell more money. So they basically consider this decision very carefully, that in whatever product or machine they're investing, how much it is going to take. While in the urban areas, Maruti basically used this statement, kitna deti hai. But in rural, you go and try to sell any product, they will ask this question for sure. Right. So from that perspective, I feel that consumer might be ready and we may face less issues when it comes to selling this concept of EV, because of course we understand over lifetime this has a better value proposition. Having said that, regarding charging infrastructure, yes, this can definitely be a problem because first of all, fortunately now in more than 80% of Indian states, we have reliable electricity available. So through electricity, it can easily be charged. But point is that whether they can afford such a high cost of charger, because a routine charger will take a lot of time, and farmers usually during season time cannot wait so much, right? During season's time, when agriculture happens, tractor actually runs 24 hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours of waiting, but in shift drivers work, right? So that's why I was saying tractor is a very abusive, it's like abused machine. People just use it for 20 hours, 22 hours, at least for 3 to 4 months in a year, right? But I did look at some of these startups. They are working on solutions like, can solar energy be used for creating a charger? I do not know whether it is happening. Some startup is doing it in India or not, but I looked at it in Sweden that there are some startups who are basically using solar energy, and there is ample solar energy. In fact, more of solar installations have happened in rural areas, all the government projects. So rural people are quite exposed to solar energy. So I think if some startup can come in and can create an innovation where solar energy can be used to charge a tractor or even two-wheelers, because rural markets are the largest consumer of two-wheelers, right? So I think this challenge can be solved. The third aspect is people really collaborate well in rural. You look at these cooperatives, or now government is even promoting FPOs, farmer producing organizations, where multiple farmers can come together, they can form a company, and then they can do a joint buying of all the inputs. And in fact, they can sell jointly as a company as well. In this way, they can create economies of scale. So I actually I'm hopeful that if we give a good EV product and then also, offer community installation of charging solution where multiple farmers can come in and basically charge their machines, it will work wonder. Of course, there is volume is less, so it will come in the end after this has happened in two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, then possibly it will come to tractors. So I think there are possibilities. We looked at all of these possibilities 4 or 5 years back, and we realized maybe it will take its own time. And then finally we thought, okay, 2025 or 2026 emission norms will come. If it gets delayed by a year, then in 2026, that will increase the price of tractor, because the new emission technology will cost almost 1.5 lakhs. And these emission norms are actually going to come from 26 horsepower onwards. Right. So then I feel that it's the right time when such strategy can work. So we are basically waiting, and we will see how market reacts, and then we would be ready to offer some good solution to the rural markets.
Right. Thank you for your take on this, sir. And like you suggested, as the powerhouse of the machine changes, so would be the design to make it more sophisticated and, to the environment. So we'll be, I think, seeing less movable parts, and so the machine becomes more and more efficient for electrification.
Yes.
Rishikesh, on to you.
Thank you, sir, for that insight. The next question I would like to ask more with respect to marketing. So to Arushi ma'am, as actually a continuation of the previous question that we had for you, as EV adoption increases, do you see the battery manufacturers and the infrastructure providers as channel partners in your distribution, and how would you go about integrating them into your downstream?
I think it's a great question, and I'm going to answer this in two parts, really, because there is one question you're asking with respect to battery supply and all of that. So I'm going to answer that separately. And then there is one question on the sales channel, if I'm understanding correctly, right? So I'm going to answer this in two different parts, just so it's very clear on what is happening where. So when you look at EVs, right, the margins are really thin. And because the service cost is hardly there, EVs don't require too much of service. There's a lot of software updates you can do on the vehicle, all of that, etc. Right? So the world and globally, if you see, a lot of manufacturers are moving to D2C setups. For example, Tesla was the one who started this, but if you see now that there are legacy manufacturers who are also getting into this. For example, Mercedes in India has a hybrid approach, right? They use the dealer warehouses as their stockyards, and then you can just book online and all of that. And then the car gets delivered home, etc. BMW is now thinking of getting into this. In fact, I think the announcement came a couple of days back. At Mahindra, we are still trying to see what is the best route possible. And that's simply because of multiple reasons. One, we've had channel partners with us for 30 years, and you just cannot walk out of a relationship like that. So it's important to keep that healthy as well. One is that. Second, it is also very dependent on the kind of volumes a manufacturer is looking at. So that said, it's also about building capability, sales training, all of those things that really come into play, because somebody who's used to selling an ICE, like, you pointed out the Yamaha and the Stallion engines, simply cannot be automatically overnight ready to start selling, lithium-ion chemistries to people. And that kind of takes a lot of time to bring people up to that capability, to, for them to make different sales pitch to different kinds of customers. Because when you look at EV customers, if I were to divide it in, say, three groups, there are three clear groups that come out as of now, given today's market, right? I'm not talking about the future. I'm talking about consumers that are buying EVs today, EVs that are available today in the market. There are three categories. One is somebody who's a comfort seeker, right? This is a person who just wants a comfortable car, irrespective of the powertrain, not really ICE or EV, but you're solving a problem for them, right? So that's one big category. The second category is somebody who values sustainability a lot. That's not a huge category, growing for sure. But if I were to put percentages, this would be the smallest segment, but the highest growing segment. And the third one is a person who is a value seeker. And when I say value, I'm going to just go back to what Amit was talking about, and the others validated that TCO is important, right? So these are the three kind of people who are completely like looking out for EVs in the journey, etc. So when they walk into a showroom, for them, it's very important to have the right person pitching to them, and for the person to know that, okay, if I'm speaking to Sugandha, then she's probably a comfort seeker. And if I'm speaking to Rishikesh, then he's probably somebody who's, you know, a sustainability seeker. So this is a huge task that's there. So this answers the first part of your question, which is what's happening at the front end. What really is happening at the back end is anybody who has figured out the supply chain with respect to battery, with respect to chips, right? And motor is really the king of the game at the moment. We're all struggling with it. I really can't disclose too much on what Mahindra is doing about it at the moment for reasons you may understand. But that really is the game. And as one of the co-panelists was mentioning that, you know, we don't have our own resources. And by we, I mean India as a country, right? We don't have our own resources. Yes, for sure. There are claims that we found some. What is happening with that is still a long time for us to figure out. But alternatively, this would be just a suggestion to all the students here that, you know, this gives you all great opportunity to see what you can do other than lithium. Like, could you look at aluminum air batteries? Could you look at any other chemistries that are possible to do with resources available in our country? So I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely. It has actually brought a few more questions to my mind. I think I'll have to look it up after the session.
So if I'm reading Rishikesh's mind correctly, he must be thinking about the resource constrained environment panel discussion we had like recently, where we were discussing about the same thing, that how we will survive in a resource constrained environment. So continuing with the discussion, my next question is to Amit sir. Sir, in your extensive international career and your hello. Yeah, sorry. In your extensive international career and your exposure to industries over there, how do you see the evolution of e-mobility and the associate technology in India is evolving differently due to the different social and economic context, or would the same technologies trickle down to us as economies of scale build up?
So I think Arushi indeed touched upon that. Basically, large organizations, homegrown automotive, let's say big giants like Mahindra, Tata's, have developed indigenous technologies, and we are indeed in the right direction. All of the automotive OEMs started with something looking at whatever ready-made in the world, looked at starting with the complete knockdown version, semi-knockdown versions, brought the assemblies. I think the NCR, Delhi Metro were flooded with electric three-wheelers even 7-8 years back, before even FAME 1 came with the lead acid battery. So as Sandeep also touched upon, some of the economically lower strata of the decision makers do take first conversion towards such kind of total cost of ownership driven let's say decisions. So they have it's been gone through that particular cycle. I do see that it still will continue like that, even in EV OEMs, and be it from the infrastructure technology perspective. Japan also went through that same cycle in 1970s, that they basically looked at whatever available developed countries technology, looked at it, worked on it, then used different technologies to do indigenous development, and then become the probably leader in one of the few of the technologies. So the same thing we are seeing. We took an example in previous conversation of Ola. Ola also started with the same thing. I think the new companies, the startups would would contribute significantly in shaping up the industry, as they will not hesitate. They don't have any sunk costs. They don't have anything to recover from the large capital expenditures. So from that perspective, the decision making would be a little bit easier. However, it's also important from the ecosystem and industry perspective, the capital deployed and also investments made are sustainable. So people should not run after the valuation game, which sometimes kills the entire investment and the attractiveness to that particular industry. So we are very optimistically investing in this industry as organization, and also we are betting on many of the segments which we feel that India would be one of the top 5 EV markets in the world. Yeah.
Thanks. So that really gave us a great picture about this. Actually, I want, before we move to the next one, I just want to get your take on what Arushi ma'am said, actually, as about, and my question to her, that is about infrastructure providers as maybe a possible channel partner in EVs. You were just mentioning at the beginning of this the session about how Siemens has captured the almost $3 billion worth of contract for the Vande Bharat trains. Do you see a similar situation in EVs as well, where Siemens becomes a kind of full service supplier for EVs? Maybe.
So, okay, what really is happening is that each company is taking their own stand on how they want to provide for charging infra to their customers, right? To give you an example, Tata Motors, because they have an in-house company and the synergies are so great. So, you know, they collaborate with Tata Power to provide the entire charging infra. And this is available to a customer at a mall, at their house, or, you know, however. And that's the route they are taking. I'm not going to comment on whether it's right, wrong. I'm just going to explain what some of the players are doing. What Mahindra is doing, that we've tied up with a couple of charging infra providers, and we have a in-house company that does the installations for us. But we are not setting up our own infrastructure. So we are very open to collaborating with the Siemens and the likes, you know, to provide multiple opportunities for a customer to be able to charge anywhere, to put it simply. And that really is the solution a customer is also looking for, right? The customer is not really bothered about, okay, if I'm charging through X brand or Y brand or, you know, A brand. For the customer, it is really about, at this point, is really about the peace of mind that, okay, if I'm driving from Bombay to Pune or Delhi to Jaipur, I know that these are really the charging stations that are available to me and all of that. In my view, the bigger challenge at the moment is that there is no one integrated platform that provides all the charging infra points available, right? So, you know, when you buy an EV, you have to download like at least 4 apps to see where all you can charge, right? So you have to download one government app, one Tata Power app, one Steady app, right? You have to download. And that really, you guys should, you know, just think about it, brainstorm and figure out, just bring everything on one platform and you're creating such great value. I think the government is working on one such project. I'm not really sure on what the progress is at the moment, but I was reading up about it. That's really my take on charging infra. And in fact, you know, Amit mentioned this, and globally, we've seen that 75% of the people charge at home. They either charge at home or charge at their office. And people, you know, and eventually 5 years later, 7 years later, when the battery chemistry is improving, when your efficiencies are improving, the requirement is only going to go down. It's not going to go, you know, it's going to go up in terms of volume for sure, but the per person requirement of charging is really going to go down with the tech advancement in battery chemistry. So, and like I said in one of my earlier answers, that because technology is so new and most of the buyers are first-time buyers, they don't know what really is their own usage, right? So there is anxiety, but once they buy the car and 2 months later, they're like, okay, I don't need to have anxiety about this because I figured it out, right? And that's kind of what happens when we buy any new product, right? Think of you when you bought your first smartphone, right? Or any or if you bought your first Mac or something like that, there's always that anxiety. Acha, ye chalega kaise? Ye kaise hoga? Or when you took your first flight, or whenever you did something for the first time, really. So
Yes, thank you for really, clarifying that. That gave us a really new take on the subject. And speaking of things that we don't see, like the integrated platform that you mentioned, I want to get both Sandeep sir and Arindam sir's take on this. Maybe a short, brief, let's call it a 120-second take along the lines of Twitter. What are some of the maybe new age companies or maybe even the entrance companies which are doing great work on the EV front that we may not be aware of, that you've seen in your own industries, and that is not known to the public at hand because of maybe lack of media coverage? I'll start with Arindam, sir.
Yeah, sure. I think as I said that, much of this charging infra problem is actually a software problem and not only hardware problem, right? So a lot of things are happening on the software side of it. As I said that we interacted with one of the startups who are building that operating system, which can make all the charging stations interoperable with any brand. If you go to any charging stations, you still should be able to charge your vehicle. So, and it's a complex system development. It's not like easy stuff. It's almost like an operating system which has to talk to your vehicle electronics or vehicle operating system, plus it has to talk to the OEM's systems and make sure that whatever charging endpoint you go to, you can still charge your vehicle no matter which is the maker of that car. So I think that's one interesting thing which is coming up. We also know that there are a lot of development happening on the battery side of it, whether we call it smart battery or the battery management system. Those kind of things are working well. I mean, for example, smart batteries or BMS can actually give you or reduce that range anxiety, right? So startups are working to give you the right analytics that how much range is left for your battery. And if you can get that ahead of time or in your dashboard, you know that okay, this is the time you have in your hand, and then go to a charging station rather than just worrying all the time that if I run out of battery, then what happens, right? So these are few developments which we are seeing. Another interesting thing I just wanted to highlight, and maybe a question to Sandeep, and he said that EV is going to be slow in adoption, but I think we have seen some interesting startups, EV startups, EV tractor startup to be precise, and they have identified the problem statements like this, that they're saying that the tractor what we sell typically to a farmer, and they're oversized, and the farmers, they don't need such a big tractor like 75 horsepower tractor, probably 25 will do. And if we have a replaceable battery or probably swappable battery, and while one battery is on work, the other battery can get charged. And if you have a smaller capacity tractor which serves your purpose on the field, because it's not meant for carrying 50 people together, right? So that's how people typically use a tractor, because they are forced to buy that heavy load tractor because there is no other option. But I think EV can play an important role to plug that gap. So if you can create smaller size tractor for the farmers and have a better machine, or equipping the farmers with a better version of the machine which they can afford and also serve its purpose, with solving that charging problem. I think that probably would be one beautiful use case for the EVs to penetrate with the EV market.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
I think one trend which is happening globally is zero-till agriculture. Why tractor basically requires big horsepower is because in more than 50% of the country land, I mean, land is actually very hard, and it is getting harder day by day because rain is not happening, or it is happening with a lot of variations, or farmers are pumping out a lot of groundwater. And then you basically need to till that land. So for that, you need a lot more force in the tractor to basically take that implement forward. And that's how size of the tractor is actually increasing. While in other part of the world, like US or Europe, bigger size tractors are used because population of farmers are actually becoming very, very less. I mean, the entire US land could be tilled by maybe below 1 million farmers. And they have 2,000, 3,000 hectares of land, which they cannot till using small tractors. That's why they need to keep even 400 or 500 horsepower tractors. So these two trends actually have pushed size of the tractor to go up. This is one thing. Having said that, now there are few startups which are basically coming in, and they are saying rather than keeping a big tractor, keep 10 smaller tractors. And these 10 smaller tractors can actually run together, can be controlled by a remote sensing room. These tractors can be completely autonomous, and then same work basically you can do using multiple smaller tractors. Other thing is there is huge power loss in any diesel machine. Whatever power you get in the engine and whatever power you get in the wheel, I think 30 to 35% power gets lost. But in any EV vehicle or even EV electric tractor, there is 100% power transfer from whatever you generate through battery to motor to it gets transferred to tire. So a smaller electric tractor will actually deliver more power. That's why it is more efficient. So I think I was also talking about zero till. Zero till is actually you don't need to till the land the way we are doing today, because it does more harm to the soil than good. In fact, Brazil, Argentina, Australia, these countries are moving to zero till. So here you don't need to till the land at the starting. You basically drill the seed in the soil, and automatically then basically plant will come out. So there I think there is a great use case of such tractors, because you don't need to do traction jobs from the tractor. I think this trend, because it is environment friendly, energy friendly, and the cost of agriculture also will reduce by 30 to 35%, will catch up in rest of the world, maybe 10 years time, 15 years time. And along with this trend, then I think EV will make great sense in agriculture industry as well. So I feel that in smaller tractors, it will definitely pick up pace. And now coming to your, do you want to ask me the same question, Rishikesh? Or you have a different question for me?
No, sir, it is along the similar lines.
So yeah, so in our industry also, there are a few good startups, not in the area of charging, but in the product domain. One is ProSector. It's a very promising startup. They are developing a completely unique tractor. I mean, it's a mix of diesel EV hybrid as well as CNG hybrid. And this tractor will have all car-like features, at least the proto they developed. And I also saw it myself because they are in Delhi NCR only. So very promising startup and very promising product. I think the product information is available on website also. And I was like awestruck looking at the product. Such a fantastic product. It can even beat in features many automobiles as well. Such a good product. Other than this, there is very interesting startup which is doing good in US, Monarch Tractor, and one Indian company, VST Tillers, has some collaboration with this company, and they are developing a 50 to 60 horsepower tractor, which is like an ideal range of the tractor. And in India, 80% of the tractors are actually in this range, 50 to 60 horsepower. So such a tractor, if it clicks well in USA, and let us say some startup or even large OEMs, they develop such a product in India, I think it can become a race in India. As I told TCO, farmers understand it really well, more than urban customers. So we are just waiting for that right time, maybe 3-4 years down the line, when battery prices as well as technology will be more reachable for farmers, as well as some changes in the ecosystem of agriculture will also happen. I think these 2-3 trends have to come together, backed by government policy as well for agriculture, because agriculture can be very easily emission free completely, if we really, bring all the pieces together.
Thanks.
Sorry to interrupt. I guess Amit sir has to leave early, I think, and I want to give a word of thanks. So, Amit sir, I wanted to thank you for invaluable insights on the total cost of ownership of electric vehicles. Your expertise from Siemens has been instrumental, eliminating the economical advantage of EVs, aligning seamlessly with our mission for a sustainable future. And thank you for your dedication and commitment to making a positive impact in automotive space.
Thank you. Sorry
Thank you
for
so much
other
for joining,
co-panelists.
sir.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, sir.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you.
We are.
You can continue, yeah.
I was just saying that we are, personally, I am very enjoying where this discussion is going. And like the curious person I am, my batch is also similar level curious. So we have few questions from the batch, and with your permission, we would like to take it one by one. Sure. Starting with Nagendra, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Sure. Am I audible? Okay. Good evening to all the panelists, and thank you for a very truly and engaging, thought-provoking session. So we've discussed about the environmental focus and as well as the opportunities that this disruption is presenting, right? So I've recently read that how battery recycling industry can provide such an opportunity to the automobile industry in terms of partnering with those companies and closing the loop for the circular economy, and probably transfer some of the benefits to the consumer and probably get a competitive advantage. So I wanted to know your thoughts on where is the industry in terms of leveraging this side of the opportunity, and it's like what are the thoughts about it?
Maybe I can just open up. So I think this is going to be a big problem, and it's well understood by the industry. So, 6-7 years down the line, once the batteries will be out of life, that may pose a huge challenge in front of us, unless and until we have developed recycling technologies. So I think that there are works which are happening. I don't know exactly what is the technology of recycling the lithium-ion batteries, but lead-acid batteries can be recycled, or maybe even can be extended their product life, so that we produce less number of new batteries, and the product life can be extended up to even 2-3 times of its original life, which is typically 3 to 5 years. So I think the problem is well understood. This is well recognized by the industries, and I know that industry is working towards recycling technologies, especially if I talk about the battery technologies.
So actually, I agree with Arindam that this is really a widely discussed topic for all of us, working in this mobility space, e-mobility space, and it's really a very big challenge, given the rise of the EV adoption and the pace at which it's going. But I have a slightly different take on this, and I think that it's important to get all perspectives. So, India is looking at generating 500 gigawatt electricity from renewable energy by 2030, right? And is currently well on track to do this. Now, this requires not just generation of electricity, but also to create massive storage systems, okay? And so this is a market which is really ready for repurposing EV batteries. And I don't mean recycling. So I call this, to use a Hindi phrase, I call this the beautiful Apada Mein Sampada for our country. And if you were to see that if the EV penetration goes up to say 30% by 2030, right? The repurposing of EV batteries would fall short of the capacity of the energy storage systems that would have been developed by them, right? So this really is a sunrise opportunity for you guys to just think of and ponder on. I just also want to make a small secondary point that recycling of batteries is far more expensive than putting it in repurposing of storage system. And because recycling essentially involves breaking it down completely, extracting all of the material, all of the rare earth material that is there, and then figuring out what to do with it, versus you repurposing it and giving it a second life in a storage system. So I just wanted to add to what Arindam was saying and give you a slightly different perspective, that looking at it from an India lens and what's really happening in the country.
Thank you.
I also have similar take on it. I think first comes the product, then comes the challenges with it. And eventually, right now, people are basically working on a good product, good EV product. Let us say how to improve all the aspects of it today. But once, let us say, we are in the certain stage of product life cycle, then automatically there will be new companies, new startups, which will try to solve this issue as well. Now, there is only one aspect to look at it. Lithium minerals reserves could be limited. And I understand the extraction process of lithium itself from through mining process is very, very costly. Now, mining that lithium from a mine versus mining that lithium from the used battery. So what is the cost equation? That I possibly do not know, but I'm pretty sure mining a lithium from the used battery would be still a little bit cheaper in comparison to mining it from a mine. So from that perspective, I think it's a very good problem to solve, and I'm pretty sure people will find good solutions towards it. So I personally do not look at it as a big challenge. It will become a big challenge once we start to sell a large number of EV vehicles, and let us say at certain age, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of life, once we start to recycle those batteries. So I think we still have good 5, 7 years to develop reliable solutions for this. I'm pretty sure it will come in the market. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Actually, we'll go to the next question from Atul, I believe. Atul, please unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for such session. My name is Atul Srivastav. I have working in automotive industry for past 12 years, working with Bajaj, Hero, and an electric vehicle startup named River in Bangalore. So my question is basically, I agree with Sandeep, what he said, direct lithium extraction will be, I think, the future where people can move into lithium extraction into better ways and provide a sustainable future over there as well. So my question is a different one. I think, how do you foresee the discontinuation of the FAME 2 subsidy affecting the electric vehicle industry? With the discontinuation in mind, do you believe the industry can mitigate challenges and drive growth by focusing on PLI schemes, particularly encouraging in-house production of cells? How might this approach resolve the manufacturing concern and faster adoption, basically? Because now the subsidy is moving out and PLI scheme is increasing. Government want more focus and R&D infrastructure on cell manufacturing. So how the companies are reshaping their strategy? Because affordability is a critical aspect. 40% cost is battery cells.
If you can also point towards who you want to get the answer from.
Any one of you. So this is a very general question we are currently.
Yeah, I would probably ask either Anushya or Sandeep to take it up.
You look at any country, you look at China, you look at any of the European countries, all of them started out with giving incentives, right? To manufacturers, to customers, to end customers, etc.
Yes.
What really is the point of giving incentive is to increase adoption, give a push to the category and all of that. But eventually when a certain penetration percentage is reached within the category, incentives are pulled out. And that's kind of when the category kind of accelerates on its own, right? But what is important to note is that all governments everywhere globally do pull out incentives. It's not a permanent thing, and nor is it going to be a permanent thing in India for that matter. So a good plan of any company is ideally should be based on in a scenario when there are no incentives, and that's, you know, that plan should kind of fall through your product, your marketing, your tech, all of it. Your product plan should not be linked to you know, kitna incentive milega or kitna PLI hoga or pricing. Okay, initially yes, for sure, but a long-term sustainable plan should, in my view, should be based on a scenario where there are no incentives and the category is still accelerating into growth. That's my take on it. Sandeep can add.
Well, I have to look at it as an outsider because we are not selling any two-wheeler, four-wheeler product. But whatever, and our industry is also driven by a lot of subsidies. All these state governments offer subsidies for tractors as well or other farm machinery as well, time to time. And that is mainly to drive adoption, as Arushi also mentioned. So no company can make plan on that. Eventually, once you have sizable volume which is being sold in the market, in a meanwhile, all the companies basically start to work on cost efficiencies, how to basically achieve it, or how to basically position your product in a manner that your value proposition justifies the cost you are charging, right? So I think, and in fact, I was also looking at numbers last day, that even after stopping this, I think for a couple of or maybe 3-4 months, some number do tanked up in two-wheelers, but last month's sale has been good. So yes. I think, and I'm surprised. Basically, I mean, typically the level of incentives government was offering under this scheme, after that two-wheeler prices have actually increased, EV prices, but still market has reacted really well. So it's a very good sign. And I also understand that many companies are developing the next range of products, either by, you know, eliminating some useless features or features which are not giving that great value to the customer, or maybe by improving some efficiency in the battering or sourcing process, that some cost reduction definitely will happen. And I think overall value proposition would be maintained. So I think it's a good challenge to have, because only then industry can work on improving the efficiency. Overall efficiency can be improved.
Thank you. I think the cell manufacturing and the innovation which will drive the future. That is the only way for all the companies to move into a profitability zone in whole electric vehicle industry. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Atul, for that question, and thank you, speakers, for answering that. Moving ahead, next question is from Vishal.
Hi everyone. Thank you for doing this. My question is more from a medium-term perspective, and I'll pick up from Mr. Sandeep's illustration through that low-power tractors. There was a McKinsey report that mentioned that the worldwide demand for EV vehicles will be 6x by 2030, and my question is that, do you think Indian OEMs have a competitive advantage or a competitive edge to tap into the international market? And can India become an export hub of sorts in the EV vehicle segment? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. See, we have to look at in which domain we want to develop that capability. As we know, we definitely don't have the reliable supply of lithium ions, right? So until we develop an alternate technology, as Arushi was also mentioning, aluminum air, I understand some IITs are working on that. So until we develop any other reliable source, we cannot have a competitive advantage in this space. And then battery is also linked. Battery technology is also linked with this, right? So maybe my feeling is this area is not for us. But if you look at electric motors, or if you look at even chips, because I think 1 month back or 2 months back, there was a huge conference on semiconductors in Gujarat. And I think the government has picked up this area. They want to really develop it. So understanding from that piece of information, I feel that this area government is going to focus, and EV industry can also focus on this, and we can definitely develop it, because all OEMs basically want to move away from China. And right now, I think Taiwan is the only other reliable source. Can India be that another source? People are actually looking at it in that way. So this is another area. And as I said, electric motors. So right now, India is actually producing a lot of electronics as well as electrical items, and exports have also become 5-6 times in last 5-6 years. You look at mobile phone, you look at television, you look at even a lot of other electrical items. So from that perspective, I think we can definitely pick up this area as a competitive advantage. And now comes the overall packaging of the product. We are known for our software processes, software capability. So I think the overall architecture of the vehicle can definitely be another competitive advantage to explore. And then, of course, combining it together and then exporting the finished product. So we are doing pretty well in two-wheeler. Bajaj is a huge case study in two-wheelers. It has actually beaten China in Africa and Latin American markets. So I think we have that, we can do it. Government has to support, and I think we have to think about scale. One of the big issue with Indian startups or Indian companies is actually thinking about export scale. Right now, our market itself is so huge that we are just looking at domestic markets. But we have to build the scale for exports like what China has done. Only then we can produce at a cost which definitely create a competitive advantage for a country like us. Thank you.
And this is important considering India has set a $2 trillion export numbers by 2030. And automobile is a major contributor to our GDP in general. I think close to 50% of manufacturing GDP. So critical in that sense.
See, if you look at are we in the top 10 automobile exporting countries today? Maybe not. We are not even in top 10, maybe distant 9th or 10th. So from that perspective, you look at ICE exports that we are, but auto component players are really doing well in this space. So I look at EV auto component supply as a bright spot. I think we have some great companies in auto component supply chain. They will do really well. Whether we can do that with a finished product or complete OEM product, that we have to see in next 5 to 7 years time.
Thank you for getting that question, sir. Next question is from Abhinav. Can Abhinav unmute yourself? Ask the question.
Hello, sir. Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. So I'm Abhinav, and I have over 5 years of work experience from Tata Motors Limited, and specifically in the commercial vehicle segment. So we have had discussion over the total cost of ownership in commercial vehicle segment, and I think I understand the underlying drivers for better total cost of ownership is the high load carrying capacity, longer duty cycles, and the low turnaround time. And I think it is difficult for the EV segment in the EV introduction in commercial segment due to improving upon these 3 features. So unless and until there is a massive disruption in the battery manufacturing, cycling and recycling, what are your thoughts on this? Because I think it would be very difficult for adoption of EV in the commercial vehicle segment. So any thoughts on this? This question is actually open to all the panelists. Maybe Sandeep sir can add upon this.
Yeah. So can you just repeat the last 20 seconds of your question? What exactly you want me to answer for?
Yes, sir. Sir, we've had discussion about total cost of ownership, and the underlying drivers for better total cost of ownership would be high load carrying capacity, longer
Yeah.
duty cycles, and low turnaround time. So I think it is difficult for adoption of EV in the commercial space due to these particular factors, unless and until there is a massive disruption in battery manufacturing, recycling, and charging infrastructure. So, what are your thoughts on this?
See, if you look at EV battery technology 5-6 years back, and if you look at it today, I think more than 200% improvement has already been done. Be it the efficiency, be it the size, be it the cost per kilowatt hour, right? And I think Tesla is doing great job in that space. So taking a clue from there, I think in next 5 years, we will again be sitting on a huge improvement in battery technology. It may not be in the same range as we have seen in last 5 to 7 years for the simple reason that I think 70-80% improvement has already happened until, let us say, some disruption happen in the way batteries are actually made today or designed or made today, right? So I think eventually this will happen. If it does not happen with the lithium ion battery, then I think that there will be some alternate technology, because while we are still discussing it and maybe 80-90% of it is running on lithium ion, but I think aluminum air is another material on which a lot of research is happening. And then a lot of research is also happening on hydrogen as a fuel. Nobody knows hydrogen may come in 10 years time and can replace EV completely, right? Because hydrogen's availability is not a question mark. Only the storage and how to use it today is a question mark. And the amount of investment you see Reliance and Adani, they have put in hydrogen as a fuel, it actually shows a lot of hope for me. So I feel that while battery improvement may not be that great on a scale in comparison to last 5-7 years, but it will definitely improve a lot. And then let's look at the alternate technologies or material as well.
Yes, exactly. The power density ratio has to be increased because keeping into the view the high load that has to be carried by the trucks.
Yes,
okay,
yes,
so
yes.
and that's that.
So that's why I earlier shared that commercial vehicles, agriculture machineries, or even construction equipments, I think they will be using hydrogen as a fuel, because
Okay.
that will make more sense operationally as well for these large size machines.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Abhinav, for your question. Next is Rohit. Rohit, please unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, hello to the panelist. Thank you for your time. So my question is on the smart mobility that we are talking about. So smart mobility is basically leveraging, the wide penetration of internet and IoT based technologies to, make the vehicles connected. So, it presents a, wide variety of use cases like predictive maintenance, vehicle tracking, usage-based insurance, performance monitoring, etc., etc. But there are also risks associated to security and data safety. So, how are EV companies managing that? And one other part of the question is that what are some, still unexperimented use cases of these connected vehicles and smart vehicles that we'll see in the future? Thank you.
So, hi Rohit, I'll just take this question quickly.
Yeah.
With respect to the first part of the question, it is not related to EV or ICE. This is something that's happening for both powertrains, right? And with respect to your question on data security and privacy, that is something all manufacturers are dealing with at the moment. There's a whole lot of work that's going on at the government level. There are many panels that that are there, and I'm sure you guys are reading up about it as well, right? There is something in the drafts that will come probably next year or next to next year, hopefully, that's kind of going to change the way how you and I even consume internet today, right? Not, how you consume internet on your phone, how you're consuming content on your phone, that's going to change. So that is irrespective of vehicle or not. And that's a great observation, by the way, that you made. Yeah, that's my take on it. It really has nothing to do with ICE or EV. This is something that, at the end of the day, it's just a powertrain, right? You're choosing if you want petrol, diesel, EV, or XYZ that comes up later. The feature stack kind of remains the same in both powertrains, right?
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So as I understand, I mean, based on the regulations that may come in, the EV manufacturers will tend to comply those.
Even the ICE.
Yeah.
There's,
Yeah, ICE,
I
yeah.
mean, if, for example, if I have a 20-inch screen in my car, which is a petrol car, that's playing Netflix or any other OTT or any other content, and if there is a regulation that's not just for EVs, that's for all manufacturers, for all powertrains to follow. But the bill really has nothing to do with EVs. It's going to come for everybody.
Yeah,
Got
maybe
it.
I can just add, I was in Gartner, so I love to talk about the Gartner hype cycle. So this is just a technology hype. We have seen this happening, probably it was one of the buzzword 2-3 years back, but this is not really something which everybody is running after. This technology is not proven to be something without which, something other will be compromised. And also with the new hypes like AI or Gen AI and stuff like that, some technologies are bound to go down in the trough of disillusionment or whatever you call it, if you follow the Gartner hype cycle. So this is not a technology which is really like bothering the developers right now at this point in time. It's something probably which will evolve going forward. Maybe some people would be still interested to come up with some solutions which tackle this kind of problems. But this is not something which is really high in the list of priority if I talk about the automobile sector at large and also EV particularly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next question is from Nishant. You can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Good evening to the panelists. Am I audible?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So my name is Nishant and I'm an automobile engineering graduate, post which I worked in the design and development of automotive ADAS systems and robotics. So the long-term goal seems to be the elimination of IC engines. My question is, how has the industry planned to reskill or transition the traditional workforce in the manufacturing plants which have dedicated their entire life to IC engines? How can they work on EV modules? I mean, what are the transferable skills? Because there may be a technician who has given all his life working on some oil sump or a lubrication system or cylinder liner. How would the legacy workforce be used in the EV industry?
Okay, let me share my take on this. See, it is not just with the EV. It is with changing engine technology as well. You compare the engine which were there 20 years back and you compare the engine today. A lot more parts have got added, right? So I think reskilling is the word. People have to go through this cycle that they have to reskill themselves. Organizations also will put their workforces for reskilling. This is definitely one step or initiative which everybody has to do. Second thing is basically the institutions as well. For example, engineering colleges, diploma colleges. Let us say in factories, you get a lot of diploma holders, or even you get some employees from ITIs as well. So I think changes have to be made there. We continue to hear that what we study. In fact, it happened with me also. What I studied, let us say in my engineering, and what I actually saw, it was completely different. So maybe some 5, 7, 8, 10 years gap in what we study and what we actually see. And this life cycle of disruptions and technological changes now have reduced. Earlier, let us say one change will happen in 20 years. Now it is happening in 3 to 5 years cycle. So I think another initiative, which I think government has to maybe create through some regulation or some advisory, that how these training grounds can be prepared well to basically serve the industry with these new skills. So I think if we do these two, we can definitely overcome these challenges. The another aspect of the question that where to use people who are trained in one skill. Of course, you cannot train all the people for the new skills. Eventually, we have to see what do we do with these people. And of course, this transition is not going to happen in 2-3 years' time. I think this shift in automobile from ICE to, let us say, EV will happen over a period. I mean, as per some estimates, 30% of vehicle population would become EV by 2030. I think we have long time for this transition. So it is not going to happen on ad hoc basis or with some kind of an issues that tomorrow we have to basically reskill these people. So I think everything can be planned in a well manner.
I was laughing hearing this question because I just had sort of lighter debate with one of my friends, and he did his mechanical engineering and I did my electrical engineering. And we were saying that the automobile industry is shifting from mechanical engineers to electrical engineers now. We are talking about electrical motors and induction motors and all of that, DC motors and induction motors and all of that. But to be frank, I feel that as long as it requires engineering skills and engineering capabilities, India is never going to have lack of skills or lack of capabilities. On the technician sides, I think there are already that shift is happening. I know that there are many players who are trying to consolidate the dealers and aftermarkets with EV. I think the concept of multi-dealers or multi-dealership or multi aftermarket concept is evolving, and I think these players are going to take a leading role in terms of upskilling people on the technician side. Like a lot of these unorganized aftermarket players, I think is going to also try to become more organized, or maybe some of the players will try to make them organized, and I think that shift will also happen automatically as we go along.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for your invaluable time and insights. And as we are approaching the closure of this session, I would like to invite Atul to give the vote of thanks to you. And also apologies to the questions which were not asked. We'll try to mail them to the speakers.
Thank you, Sugandha. I think I can relate with Arindam sir, what he's saying, the mechanical and electronics. Now the mechatronics domain is dominating the automotive industry. I wanted to thank all the panelists on the behalf of our batch for your enthusiastic participation on Excel Samvad, e-mobility, ecosystem and evolution. This brought a wealth of knowledge and diverse perspective to discussion to each of us. Arushi ma'am, your insights from Mahindra were particularly enlightening. Your emphasis on understanding the customer perspective for instilling confidence in EV adoption resonated deeply, underscoring the vital role of trust and customer centricity in transformative journey. Arindam sir, your emphasis on the importance of standard charging infrastructure in driving growth resonates profoundly. I can relate it with myself because when we were building our EV scooter, we want to standardize our charger, and we were discussing with Ather and Ola at that point of time. And this will actually bring more acceptance of electric vehicle to whole industry. Sandeep sir, your expertise from Escort Kubota added a unique dimension by exploring the technological advancement driven by hydrogen, particularly in agriculture and construction sector, which was a very new learning for me as well. Your insight showcased a diverse applicability of e-mobility, further emphasizing the potential of innovation in every corner of the industry. The engaging discussion we had on EV adoption, brand building, charging infrastructure, and the potential of hydrogen and alternate technology, fueled by the collective ideas and expertise, showed our shared commitment to accelerating the transition to clean and sustainable transportation. Your presence not only made the event intellectually stimulating, but also inspired everyone present. Thank you for your time, wisdom, and collaborative spirit. Together, we are charting a transformative course ahead for more sustainable future of mobility. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Good luck to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And ma'am.